Sure. Thank you, Mary and Kelly. It's so great to work with you ladies, and so nice to see familiar names popping up as you enter and join. Thank you for taking time for yourself today. Glad to be continuing. Your well-being matters. So we shall begin. I'm excited to share information that I've been doing for audiences that wanted to go 2.0. And we have Burnout 2.0, 5 elements of well-being. So myself, if you're new and maybe this is your first time tuning in, I am a coach, a well-being coach, consultant, mindfulness facilitator. After years in business, I transitioned several years ago into coaching and was positioned perfectly for pandemic to go virtual like this, which has been such a gift to get information out to people. It makes it easy for us to gather. It's nice to be in person as well. So it's nice to see some of that coming back. But the Center for Clarity, Compassion, and Contentment is my business. It's my practice, my coaching practice. And the center is not a place you go. It's a place you find inside of yourself, a sense of groundedness in the face of the world's chaos, stressors that are outside of you, things that are out of your control. And I do believe that when clarity, compassion, and contentment are present, an inspired life is possible. So despite our challenges, we're able to find that center and for all of us, and well-being is part of that. So I want to share with you some information that's vital. So what is well-being? Well-being is the experience of health, happiness, and prosperity. It includes good mental health, high satisfaction in life, a sense of meaning or purpose, and the ability to manage stress. This paragraph packs a real punch. And fear not if you feel like you just heard that paragraph and you're like, yeah, I've got none of that right now. That's a pretty normal place to be given conditions in the workplace, in the world, just coming off of a couple of years of pandemic, depending on what's going on in your world, people may be feeling very much like, hi, I don't have well-being. And that's okay. This is a place to begin. Sometimes we might be talking about information like this, and someone says, hey, I'm doing a little better than I thought I was. And that's great too. So I hope that this is a guide for either recovering your well-being, coming back from burnout, or just really reiterating what you're doing that might be really well if you're feeling good. So these are the guides we need to know and focus on in life. I like to call this well-being at work too, because work, your workplace, your association, this collaboration is providing well-being for you. And I think this is a great forum to do that. So the elements of well-being, I kind of snuck in a sixth on you while I was continuing to work with this. Mind and body as one of the elements, I'm going to break out separately as I go into a little bit more detail. And of course, then there's even more detail we can go. This is like an overview on well-being. So we're going to go even deeper in the next 2 sessions on areas that I think are especially good for helping to boost our well-being. So we have our mind and body, social well-being, workplace well-being, community well-being, and financial well-being. And I consider these the keys. This is the key to understanding what's going on for you. And then on the right-hand side here, just a couple of notes as we are continuing. So this is a continuation from last time. This is last year in our burnout series. So just to reiterate, we talked about burnout. So we addressed burnout, that feeling where you can't rest yourself, you're disengaged, maybe you have blunted, numb emotions. And that's a normal place that we might get to if we're burnt out, and recovery is possible. within that, in terms of improving our well-being, we talked about a growth mindset. So having that, looking to learning something new or noticing the novelty, our brain likes that, especially when we're burnt out. Although when we're burnt out, maybe we're like, that's the last time we want to learn anything new or grow, because we feel a little shut down, but it does help. Patience and trust, they're qualities that are mindful. So we talked about mindfulness a bit, believing that the future is bright, even if we have been in crisis mode for whatever reasons, work-related reasons or personal related reasons. It might start to cloud our perspective. We might think, oh no, it's going to be worse going forward because the brain is going with what's familiar. So we can use mindfulness to come back to a sense of patience and trust in the future, so that we can calm ourselves and not be too anticipating and causing ourselves anxiety, and then having a positive attitude. So those were some of the things we talked about in the original Burnout series in a number of different ways. So those are like the light bulb, when we're shining a light on some of this, so that it's clearer for you to see in the moment, so that you can address your well-being. Well-being is something everyone seems to want. So this is one of the hottest topics going, and I'm scrambling to try and create more content because so many workplaces and associations are interested in it. We want all these positive things in our life. We want to feel happy, healthy, socially connected, and purposeful. Yes, absolutely. We're 1000% on board, but it's interesting because the data is showing that it's in decline. And in that, increasing well-being can be difficult to do if we don't know how to do it. And that, again, is why we're talking about this today. So I hope to give you a guide to make it so much simpler for you to address your well-being on an ongoing basis. Beginning with the mind. This is why I took physical well-being and I added emotional well-being, because one thing I feel, and breaking these out into body and mind into two categories, is this is the hidden key to the biggest gains. Stress, our thoughts, how we feel, how we're managing our stress, how calm we are, how frenzied we are, how overwhelmed we are. This matters. This matters to our overall well-being. So I feel like, as a coach, this is the lowest hanging fruit to gaining a sense of well-being. Again, that center, that groundedness, is to get in tune with what you might need in this category. How we're perceiving our life matters, how we're perceiving what's happening at work. And the interesting thing about relaxation techniques, so I have a couple of bullet items that we will go a little bit deeper in the next session, but relaxation techniques, this matters. It might seem like a small thing, but how you go home, maybe debrief after your day at work, how you bring yourself to calm when you're in the middle of a work situation but feeling overwhelmed and overstimulated. This matters because the brain is going to keep telling you that there's no time for you to be relaxed, that there's too much urgency in what you do. And it's a bit of a myth. And last year, I should say, in the Burnout series, we talked about the sense of having an ego. This is the part of your brain that is troubleshooting for you, problem solving for you, and it's going to keep you in your problems. It's what it does for us, and it does it so well. Our brain is such a great instrument that sometimes it's hard for us to put it away, but sometimes it's an instrument that needs to be put away a little bit. And it doesn't mean completely getting rid of all of your thoughts and meditating with an empty mind. It just means that we need to know, when we walk away from it, how to relax, how to create calm, how to say, I'm going to go back to that problem or that noodling on that problem at a later point. So our brain operates better in a relaxed state because it keeps us in our higher functioning brain. If we get too overwhelmed, we're in fight or flight. And so for many of you who've been joining on these sessions, this is something that comes up all the time because it's so core to know, and it's worth repeating, is that when we get too stressed and in fight or flight, and maybe staying in that too long a time period, we aren't in the best part of our brain to do most of the work at in work and life that takes a higher functioning brain. We don't want to be running away from danger. That's not actually what we need. So stress management, relaxation techniques are huge, and we want to be working them in 2023. Work these into your daily, weekly lives, multiple times a day, things that can bring you back to a sense of calm and relax so that you allow your body to recover a bit in between doing the great work you do. Resilience is finding a path forward. And like it suggests, we had a whole session on this last year, is resilience is that, just like the word implies, right? Stretchy. We can stretch it and it goes back into place. So our resilience is finding a path forward, basically a point of, oh, okay, life is okay, and I'm doing life, and we're going to get where we need to go. That path forward when you have a setback, when things have gone wrong. And the reason why I note resistance there in the parentheses is sometimes we don't find our resilience for a while because we're resisting what is. And there's extra stress and suffering when we resist what is. So that's an area that we can go deeper with more skills, tools, techniques to just understand that the longer we resist something, that we might be adding to our stress or our emotional distress, and not finding the path forward. Another key to emotional well-being is self-love. And today's Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day to everyone. The number one person that I want you to love in life is yourself, because I want to bust the myth that it's self-indulgent, that it's narcissistic, that it's egotistical to love yourself. You all have unconditional human worth. We look out in the world and we know that people are getting stressed out because they're making evaluations and maybe unfavorable comparisons to themselves versus others. We might have a sharp inner critic that's talking to us and being a little down on ourselves. And it's so much a key to our well-being if our own worthiness in our selves, that start with self-kindness, start with self-love. You do want to alleviate your own suffering, self-compassion, and again, putting aside the myths. So in 2023, put aside the myth that there's anything wrong with that. Give yourself the gift of that. That's a great key to our emotional well-being. Our physical well-being. So now this is the body piece. It's interesting because having the energy to get things done. So we might have a sharp inner critic there. We might have things that we need to do. We might be dealing with some health issues and health problems. But in general, just our body does a lot on its own. And how often do we stop and think about how wonderful it is that our organs seem to know what to do, and how miraculous the body is? There's an expression that is that I might have said before too under mindfulness is, as long as you're still breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. So a functioning body is the goal for physical well-being. We could be anywhere on the continuum of wellness or illness, but healthy living in general. There's probably some low-hanging fruit here to make sure you have the energy to get things done. I really actually should add sleep. We've talked about that in the past, with exercise and food, healthy living, a healthy lifestyle, and making sure that our body works. But again, It's not perfection, it's progress over perfection. So thinking about physical well-being as literally just, do you have the energy to get things done? And then maybe even reflecting on what it is that you are requiring of yourself to get done. Because I think sometimes we cram ourselves a little too full of all the things that we need to get done. So maybe we look at that with a little bit more of a body movement or a feeding your body right. Take small steps too, because I know that sometimes we need to make big steps, but when it comes to physical well-being and combined with habit building, I'm reading a great book called Atomic Habits right now, and atomic meaning very small. And so there's this compounding interest for our habits. So small steps can drop our resistance and get us into better habit building. So count the small successes as well. Our social well-being. You have meaningful friendships in your life. So this is a really important part of well-being. Even the most introverted person has to have some meaningful friendships in life. I know that a lot of times some of those key friendships are also our colleagues and our coworkers. I hope that you have plenty of wonderful people around you in life. This is a key to social well-being. Someone who may not feel well in this category, it's again, maybe just a place to start. Sometimes people get to a point in their life where they say, okay, I have an interest area, and then you start building friendships around some areas of interest and what you're interested in talking about and what you're interested in learning or pursuing. And that's okay too. Don't feel like you have to spend all your time for your whole life with the same people. We can build better well-being sometimes when we branch off a little bit. And sometimes we have friendships that go astray, and that's okay too. That's kind of normal in a life. And I think sometimes we're really hard on ourselves when our paths are not crossing anymore. Good communication is key to the friendships. I know that as much as sometimes we balk at technology and maybe even Facebook, but sometimes it helps us connect with people we don't see all the time. A quick text, my mother and I text each other the Wordle every morning, and it's kind of a meaningful way of us checking in with each other. Many ways of communicating for your social well-being, and thinking about that. Good communication in general. The connections that you have are really important. And as you build the meaningful friendships in your life, it's also a support network for you when things are not so good. And I'm sure that everyone can relate to a time period where it was really great that you had a chance to connect with a friend. They helped you through a difficult time. I like to mention showing up as well. Is our brain and that ego can get us very focused on the busyness of life, and we can be very tired with work and then go home and then maybe not want to do some social things. That's normal, but don't let your brain keep you from showing up because of all the busyness in your life. You want balance in that, because it adds up. It adds up to good social well-being over time. When you're making the time to go to the movies with a friend, or you are making more time to be friendly in your workplace, or have meaningful friendships at work, because let's face it, we spend a lot of time at work. So I hope you have great connections there as well. But together, this is a key part of our well-being. In the workplace, you like what you do every day. That may seem like a very bold statement. I don't want to make anyone alarmed and like, well, I don't like what I do every day. I can relate to that. In general, though, there's a perspective to liking it. It's sometimes the big picture of liking it. Sometimes it's how we're perceiving it. And I'm going to give you an example of a friend of mine, different industry, sales manager. And they knew they weren't, that team was not going to make their goals. They were not going to make their goals for the year. It felt very defeating. It was a down year for a lot of reasons in that industry. So my friend, who was a sales manager, started to just think, I'm here to support my colleagues. In fact, my team, I'm a mentor to my team as the sales manager. My meaning that I'm building into this job this year is maybe supporting them through a difficult time. Maybe we're learning as much as we can this year, and next year is going to be better because of it. So in that way, that perspective shifting, he was creating meaning in something that felt very bad. The workplace well-being didn't feel very good when they weren't reaching their goal. And I think about what a lot of you do as well. Being too tied to the goal can be defeating when you don't control all the elements. So sometimes we like what we do every day if we can broaden the definition of what it is we like about it, or where we can find meaning or purpose. Where that meaning and purpose is a key to actually liking what you do too. So keep the big picture in mind, keep the smaller picture in mind, and also professional enrichment. You're learning and growing in everything that you do. And while you may feel very beat up, a lot of times sometimes maybe it is that chance for some professional development, taking the time to be here today, when your workplace or your association or your collaboration is offering some things. This might be what helps you like what you do every day in given years of difficult times. So just kind of branching out on how you can like what you do every day, but in maybe a different way than you thought before. Community is another key to well-being. So our community is, you like where you live. And I think a lot of us in the Capital Region, in the Adirondacks, but I know we have some people tuning in from other parts of New York. It's a great place to live and raise a family. And when I talk about some of these elements, participate, contribute, and receive, it's not just donating, but it's like being a part of your community, going out to things in the community, or receiving things from your community, liking where we live. This environment is very key to our well-being. When we think about maybe not feeling good about that, and maybe there are times when we feel too isolated, or we're thinking about a move or a shift, you might see where one of these elements of well-being tanks us. It really can take us down. It can color our perspective about how we feel in life. Our environment matters. So community is maybe your work community, it's your living community, it's what's going on around you. And there's local and global ways to think about your community as well. But being part of something larger is a key to well-being as well. So some of these elements can enhance how you feel about the place you live. And sometimes there's opportunities to make a change, and people want to change where they live. Our financial well-being. You manage your money well. This is not about being rich. This is not about having necessarily $1 million in your retirement fund. This is just managing your money well. And I think too, when I think about financial well-being, but some of the connotations I think that people have that actually could hurt their well-being is if you're familiar with the new minimalism, and that simplicity. There's this great Becoming Minimalist, this Joshua Becker, who's written a book and has great articles, great newsletter, great blog. If anyone's interested, of just, he got to this point when his kids were young and he just saw, all I'm doing is like cleaning my garage, and things are, I have all this stuff and I never have time to enjoy my life because I'm managing all this stuff. So then the minimalist effort that he talks about is maybe getting rid of some of this stuff and living life a little bit more simply and enjoying life a little bit more. So again, I think we might confuse it with having a lot of money, having a lot of stuff. Socially, we do, as a society, tend to have some of those connotations. Really, it's just living how you want to live financially. So maybe having a plan to manage your money better, self-control. Financial stress is a huge stressor in life. So it can put a lot of stress on your physical body, a lot of anxiety. Think about what does make you feel secure with your financial well-being. And foundations, we might have some emotions around finance or some foundations in finance that we inherited from our family of origin that might not be very healthy. So we can also reflect. If we're not feeling well-being in this area, we can kind of reflect on, how do I feel emotionally about money, and where did that come from? If we grew up with a lot of scarcity, and we didn't see our family stressing out about it, we might feel good and comfortable then, and have more of an emotional sense that there's enough. And if we saw someone stressing over the checkbook, it might give us less security, no matter how much money we have, because it is a fear of being in that place. So overall, financial well-being, again, back to just the basics of managing money well, and let that be what works best for you. We talked about the life wheel in the burnout series, and it's true here too, because these elements of well-being were in the life wheel. We branched out a little bit with this particular sheet. So when you get this PowerPoint, this is a worksheet, if you haven't done it before, from the original burnout series documents. You do it again. We can reflect on this at various times of our life. The ranking of 0 to 10, 10 being very fulfilled in this part of our life, 0 being very unfulfilled. We might make some notes. We might make it just clearer. We can actually 1 to 10, just about anything to make things clearer for ourselves, but also just note any improvements that you want. And this is one way to look at it. And these can certainly be, there we go. These can certainly be in concert. This is another way to look at it. And so you can certainly use both of these pages or one alone. Just noting how you want to feel, keeping a well-being in front of you. How do you want to feel? How you feel matters. I know I've said that before, and it rings true again for this entire year and beyond. How you want to feel matters, because this is your life. And while the elements outside of us won't always be great, we can find a sense of comfort that we are living the life that we would like to live. Short-term goals, long-term goals, there's not a ton of room. You can make this a bigger plan if you want, with more details, but you can keep it short too. You can just narrow the focus and say, here's a couple of short-term goals, here's a couple of longer-term goals. What would you see for your emotional well-being going forward in the future? What do you want to focus on? Mind, body, social, workplace, community, financial. And this page just as a writing prompt to what you'd like to focus on. And maybe you do choose to keep this front and center in 2023 if you'd like to focus on your well-being. Overall, it's so important. Your well-being matters. We have estimated, there are estimates that are continuing to pile up to support the fact that 75% of doctors' visits are attributed to stress. So with a focus on these elements, working together, your intention to feel better and have good well-being, and not let the world sort of sweep you up into a default mode. You want to have an intention for well-being, and you will set that up, and your life goes where your intention and attention goes. So your life's happening at work, not just after work, and it's all mixed together. And sometimes there are very few boundaries. I think today there's even less boundaries between work and life. So I want you to feel good about the work that you do and the life that you have in your after hours and weekends. So taking that all into consideration in a well-being plan is important. Actually, having a plan is important. Don't be too afraid if there's some elements that are pretty low right now, or if you feel a little lost. I think that's normal, and burnout has been happening at a high degree from the stressors of the past couple of years, like a little bit of we were in crisis mode and now we're coming out of it, but your brain and your body might be still on that train, and you're tired and exhausted and depleted and resentful. That's actually, it's okay. That's a place to begin. Don't feel defeated or that you don't even want to look at this material if you're in that place, because I want you to show yourself compassion. Compassion is wanting to alleviate your suffering, wanting to alleviate anyone's suffering, anyone else's. When it's compassion, self-compassion is wanting to alleviate your own suffering. And that's okay. This is a good place to start. Coaching is a great place to start. So your life is happening now, and I want you to feel good about it. It's a busy life. It's full of a lot of challenges, but we can feel good about it all. And with that, I'm going to open it up to some questions. My contact information is here and will be when I send this as a handout for later. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. And I'd like to just open up to any comments that you'd like to share with me or each other about your well-being. And maybe even what's missing too. It might fit in these categories. There might be something that I didn't address that you thought I would, and would love to hear from you.
And folks can feel free to either unmute yourself. I know some people might be in a room with others, so if you're more comfortable putting information in the chat, feel free to do that as well. We'll continue to monitor the chat.
Oh, that's some beautiful comments here. That might have been just for me. I hope everyone's year is going well so far. We're halfway through February, getting through maybe a mild winter. And winter is always a difficult time for me. It's not enough light and not enough sunlight, and not enough that I want to do outside. So I don't know if that affects. I know that that's also a part of well-being sometimes, is the winter. And I choose to hibernate usually myself. So I happen to be actually in Florida today, and have the sunshine and the nice weather, zooming, a lot of extra brightness today for me. Hoping, it seems like it's sunny back home as well. Okay, thank you, Deb. Addressing resilience again. Yes. So resilience is the ability to find the path forward when you've had a setback or a loss. And when things aren't the way we intended them to be. So we can apply that to a lot of things, big and small. And when we don't accept what is, and sometimes it takes time, depending on what that setback, what that loss is, grief, we have to come to realize what we've lost when we grieve. So there's this time where we're in maybe denial or bargaining, or in the active grieving process. Just use that as, the loss of a loved one, maybe a widow or a widower trying to find their way in the absence of loss. So that's an example of a very, very big one that requires some time. But let's just say maybe a job loss, um, uh, a job change. Okay, so different degrees of severity, but say that your job changed and you didn't particularly like it, and you're trying to find your path forward, and you need your job, and it's not feeling good anymore. So the path forward would be, how much time do you spend in resisting what is versus, how you are embracing whatever it is that you now need to do because of the job change. I think that's common in organizations. I think sometimes too, maybe we've even had colleagues leave and we miss their presence and they've taken another job. It's noticing when we're emotionally in resistance to something as it is. And it's resilience is feeling better about just accepting, when you get to a point where you can accept what is and you move forward with, if that is as it is, then what can I do to feel good? And what is my path forward? So this is the kind of thing we can work on in coaching. And I know that people, and a lot of people here are probably familiar with it because you've gone through something in life that required you to weather the storms. I think we had another, the work we do, so focused on others. It's nice to remember that we matter. Oh, you so do. It's true. Thank you, Ingrid. I think we just get on autopilot sometimes, and so do the people around us, and so does the management in our companies and where we work, and we matter to each other, and there's a lot of time we might not say it, and so your well-being does matter. These moments are your life, and there's ways to feel better about life. And sometimes in coaching, I find it's not by taking drastic change, it's by taking time to reflect, find that meaning, find that purpose, find the empowering perspective. Maybe it's finding that resilience that has been elusive when we're too stressed and we're too bogged down. So sometimes it's not a lot of drastic change to make us feel drastically better. We had another comment too. Burnout and living in New York with the stress of work, always trying to help others. Oh, lack of sun. I seriously relate. I almost feel guilt. I feel guilty that I'm that I'm zooming in with you from Florida, because I wish I could give the sunshine outside to everybody. It does give a hard time. Do you have any suggestions to try to not get too absorbed in it and be supported, but still think and take care of yourself? Interesting. Definitely a self-care component. So thank you for sending that question in. The lack of sun, helping others. We cannot give from an empty vessel. So in some way, if you start to feel yourself tank and your energy depleting because of the season, combined with trying to do everything for everyone, that's a perfect indicator that you need some pampering, some comfort, some attention to yourself, some recharge. We would never let our phones go without recharging, but we let ourselves do that all the time. So remember that you're helping others, but you're not fully responsible for outcomes that you couldn't possibly, that there's some things are out of our control. And then with the lack of sun, I did a little research, and the sun lamps do work. There's a couple of things too. There's this hygge is a term, it's a Danish term for, doing cozy, comfortable things in the winter seasons and when it's darker, and that special treat of getting together and with family or connections, social connections, and spending maybe longer than you would if you were in a nicer season. That's another kind of form of self-care. But definitely and especially on Valentine's Day, I'd love to stress that more. What is it you could do to support yourself? And how do you remind each other? Maybe you help each other. Maybe you talk to your colleagues too about holding each other accountable to self-care. Just a quick thing is, are we taking good care of ourselves? And maybe you have a team at work where that might be something that you bring to your colleagues today, that you bring to them on Valentine's Day, that you tell someone they matter and that they should take care of themselves, and that maybe you hold, you do that more frequently in 2023. Yeah, and Mary, thank you. Thank you to the participants on this call for the wonderful, heartfelt work you do. It's not an easy time to be in this business, and I'm so grateful to folks like you who are sticking with it and giving so much each day to others. I'm so glad you are taking this time for yourselves. Keep it up, make a plan. What a beautiful message, Mary. And I'm so grateful to be with all of you as well. I'm glad that you're interested in this material. I'm happy and privileged to share it with you, to make it my life's work. And if anyone's struggling with anything that they didn't want to share, please know that you can reach out to me on your own and without charge to just chat about what that might be if you want some clarification and a follow-up. And I know that for the next 2 sessions, I have in mind what I think would be the biggest pieces of that well-being pie. I can offer all of them. And so if you would like to go deeper, definitely put that in the surveys. If you have the specific ones that you wanted addressed, maybe you can put that in the survey too, because I'm flexible about what I do next month in the following month as part of this series. And I'd like to address what you would most like to address. And with that, I'll turn it back to Kelly and